All right, what I'd like to do is go quickly over the press conference that we saw about an hour ago. There's a lot of information, so I'm going to try to organize it the best I can. We heard from three people during that press conference. We heard from Governor Northam. We heard from Mayor Bobby Dyer and Police Chief Cervera. And I'm going to first start with Governor Northam. Just a couple of quotes. He says the people that were affected were all someone's child. They were all someone's son, daughter, friend, brother, sister, mother. These are all people. We don't know their names yet. We will soon. But this whole event has left a hole in Virginia Beach right now. Mayor Bobby Dyer saying this is the city's darkest hour. And then Chief Cervera coming up and talking about the details of what exactly happened when this gunman opened fire in Building 2 in the Municipal Center. He said that at any time, 400 city workers can be in that building. When you think about that, 12 people died. There could have been 400 people in that building hurt. That just goes to show the kind of work that these police officers have done today, the doctors, the nurses, everyone involved in helping people survive. They called it a long-term gun battle inside that building. The gunman holding a .45 caliber handgun with a suppressor, which is like a silencer, an extended magazine, firing with police officers for some time. He wouldn't give a specific time. Even when the man went down, after shooting at these police officers, Chief Cervera says they rushed in to give him first aid. The shooter, they gave him first aid. He said cops were doing what cops do. Now, they found victims on every level. We know, again, there are 12 people that were killed, 13 if you include the suspect. And there's one thing he wanted to do, and we mentioned this name earlier, but we're not going to say it again. The suspect, that's who he wants him to be remembered as, just the suspect. He wants us to remember the victims, keep them and their dignity alive the next coming days and weeks and months. The things that we don't know at this time, if those people were specifically targeted, if those were all city employees inside that building who were killed, who were injured. But we're going to continue to update you as soon as we know more, again, in the coming days, nights, months, and hopefully not longer than that.